I'm kind of shocked by the camaraderie
Yeah.
that I see in incarceration.
Yes.
It's kind of like we're going through this hard, painful thing together. We're trying to navigate how to be in an emotional jail while here because we can't express our masculinity the way we want because we have to be tough. Yeah. So they all kind of, I think, understand that and the loss that they're going through. And through that, I think, they're bonding, which is what I see. I'm kind of like, this is so nice seeing this. I thought it was just tough guys fighting each other all the time.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of trauma bonding.
Yeah.
In there, and so it's when I first heard you mention that you worked in prisons, when I was in college, I worked at a place, Eastern Maximum Security Prison. Went to Bard College, and they had a program there, the Bard Prison Initiative, BPI, which still goes on today. And the idea was to help incarcerated people get like college credits and sort of continue their education, because it's like you can, if you're independently minded, be an autodidact in prison and like learn, but there aren't. It felt like there wasn't a sufficient infrastructure for like rehab.
Yeah, I don't feel, honestly, the way it's bluntly been put is that some of these people will not continue their education when released, and some of them, is that me? Oh shit! Sorry, I thought I put it on silent. Hold on, I'm sorry. Mom, I told you I'm recording right now, and can I call you later? Yeah, it's okay. Can I read my text, okay? I love you. Bye. Sorry, I thought I put my phone on silent. And so, I'm so sorry. We were talking about
Rehabilitation.
Oh yes.
Doesn't seem like it's something that is really happening.
It's not. Really, I think they just want to keep people in the system rather than thinking about options on how they can survive outside. But higher education, even if they're not going to pursue it when they are released, higher education while incarcerated, it serves as hope. Instead of providing actual tangible things that can help them in life, they're like, hey, it makes us look bad if you guys keep killing yourself.
Right.
And it makes the county look bad, all right?
Yeah. A life of the mind,
Yeah.
That's really what you need, is that we all just as humans need to be able to keep our noodles entertained.
Yeah. So I like that you mentioned that, because I know that you teach, and speaking of the life of a mind, you work with younger minds at MOMA. And so, you're telling me tell me about what you do with teaching kids how to find their artistic
Oh, yeah. Well,
self.
so, I mean, there are a couple different wonderful programs that I've worked with, like, because I've been a teaching artist for a little while. And one of them at the MoMA is an art lab. And the art lab is one of the few spaces in that building that is interactive. And, if you've ever been to Burning Man, you know how, like, with art, they're like, or at Burning Man, they're always like, no one's a spectator, everyone's a participant on the playa. Well, I kind of believe that when it comes to just art in general. So many museums create this distance between the viewer and the art. And I think a lot of museums are just vanity projects for oligarchs. They'll buy like a Banksy or like a Claus statue and put it up, and it's kind of like them showing their ostentatious wealth and taste. But art itself is something that everyone should be able to do. It's not something that should be relegated to like a creative class.
No gatekeeping for the art.
Yeah, art is not a commodity that only Elon Musk can afford.
It's the capitalist mindset that makes it that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So even when you work with kids and you say, this is a masterpiece, and you show them a Van Gogh or something, and you say, this is the best, they have no idea why. But now what you're doing is distancing them from the capability of doing that, because you're saying, this is someone whose work is serious, and your little dribbles with crayons are not.
Yeah, it's kind of shaping the routine, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
Shaping the perspective of what is art to kind of mold them to maybe go into a direction rather than just say, explode.
Yeah. So with this art lab, this is the antidote to this sort of art as spectator, is in the art lab, everyone is a participant. And they're exploring lines and shapes and colors. But we have 5 different workstations. And when kids come in, I just give them a quick tour of the space. Usually, their parents have to be there because I'm not within this context. I'm not a guardian.
You're not a babysitter. Yeah, the parents need to be there.
Yeah, I'm a highly qualified art facilitator.
Damn right.
But also adults. Like if you came by yourself, I'd say, Shanti, come here. Let me show you these different spaces. Now the barrier to entry is super low, but the level of complexity you can take any of these activities to.
Okay, I like this. Oh, okay, let me enter this space,
Yeah.
teacher
All right, man.
Pacheco.
We got a bunch of little wires here. Why don't you take 5? Let's limit things because good art comes from limitations. Just take 5 wires. Now make something. And some little kid is gonna make like a little dog sculpture, but like you might make, I see some erotic art on the walls behind you. You might make like a little Kama Sutra.
Am I a kid in this situation?
Bondage creature? No, absolutely not. You're an age appropriate. So that is what I was doing most recently before this last comedy tour across the West Coast.
Cool. And are these programs like how like price wise? Are they expensive or?
Well, no. So this is free for anybody who actually bought tickets to go to the MoMA.
Okay.
So this is just a space within.
So it's like
the
an end
museum.
end of your tour activity maybe, or
Yeah, so it's in the education annex, so people will wander around the rest of the MoMA, and often they end up in our space like bewildered, not knowing that there's yet another activity space. But parents know, so we'll get the kids come, and I get like New York regulars. So you know how a bar has a regulars, they'll just be like grizzled parents that come in with the same kids. Yeah, obviously it's the same.
and
kids
the
that
kids
come
know
with-
the situation. They already have a plan.
Yeah, and it's more of a sandbox, which is I think the preferred way to have an educational space is one where you have all of the components there, and you have a facilitator, but you don't have an authoritarian who's dictating like this is the way to do it.
That's how I feel even in prison with teaching. Like, in no way am I trying to be a dictator because it doesn't invoke the energy that you want to facilitate.
Yes, yeah, and you can tell, most of the kids are great, and the ones that have any sort of personality issues, it's not them. I can tell it's their parents that made them that way. So, like, there were 3 kids that were there as their friend group, and then they all created art, and one of them, this little girl was like, yeah, we can't leave yet. They knew they had to leave because we're closing, but the little girl's like, we can't leave yet until you tell us whose work is the best. And she's like asking her mom that, and I was like, oh, you like were raised by this like a hyper competitive, ambitious person who has already poisoned your mind. Because this kid is like 8 years old, and she's like, instead of celebrating the work with her friends, and the other 2 are collaboratively just making fun things.
Yeah.
She's like, no, but which art is the best? Who did the best? Who's the best at being creative? With like, the same supplies, nobody cares. But I know that this is like, this is something she's going to have to go to therapy for later because
It's
throughout her life,
need for validation for these things. Yeah.
yeah, it's already a wrap for this kid because her parents poisoned.
And you told you could see this just through some crayons on a canvas. You're like, you are fucked up, kid.
100%. Yeah. Well, I've worked with thousands of children, and something interesting is that I do believe parents don't actually ever see their own children as autonomous adults or as autonomous beings, rather. So, like, I guess one example of this is whenever I go back home, I have a younger brother and sister, and when we hang out with our family for holidays, we regress back into our adolescent personalities and dynamics. And so it's almost like all of the work that I did for years on my own is erased when I get back into a space with 4 other individuals who have preconceived notions of my identity that then they put back on me.
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't feel this isn't a terrible feeling, but it's like just something I notice.
No, your family is ruining your growth and your life. Really, that's what.
But I'm saying that we fall back into these default patterns, or like maybe you may have had an ex or an old partner who you haven't seen them for years, but the minute that you hang out again, you get back in the same fight that you had before, even though you've done all this growth.
Yeah.
And you've become so new, and you've
Yeah.
gotten over your jealousies.
Yeah.
And
And that can even happen with behaviors in other people that trigger that. Like you might have been like,
Yeah.
oh, I thought I'm over this. And this is something that's happening that reminds me that's familiar to another time. And now that familiarity is drawing that old me back.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So the reason I brought this up with kids and adults and their parents is that, a parent projects this idea onto a child as some, it could be, oh, they're innocent. I have to protect them. I always have to protect them. Or, oh, they're really bad at math. So I always have to make sure that I do make sure that they pay the right prices for things. And
Or they're kind of quirky. So I got to make sure they're acting normal.
yes, yeah. Or they're, I know, oh, my kid's always rude. So I have to make sure that I shut that down and always police their etiquette. She's not a girl enough. She's not a woman enough. She's too much this, that. So there's all these different ways that at some point parents see one thing and then they, or maybe and then they notice something. Maybe they notice it twice and then they think it's a pattern and then they make it the kid's identity. So I would be in student teacher meetings, parent teacher meetings, and I on a Monday, the kid is tiny in my brain, but by Friday, when I was a public school teacher, the child was like a giant in my head because they were like a giant toddler or whatever, because they were my whole world, right? And within the myopic space of a classroom. And then the moment that their parent would show up for the parent teacher meeting, the child would shrink in my mind. And me seeing them on the couch next to their parent, they would shrink. But not only that, my relationship to the kids was often like manager-employee. And then when I saw them next to their parents, they would then start manifesting affectionate or they become more childlike or more, that's not the right word, immature. They would need they would look to the parent to regulate their emotional state.
Yeah.
In a way where they were managing their emotional state when they were alone. So the parent never actually sees the child as the child is in society. They only have a prejudiced view of their child as almost their property, or they're in relation to them.
Yeah.
As a caregiver, receiver of care.
Yeah.
And I saw that as a tragedy where it's like, oh man, it would suck. If I was a parent, I would never notice my child actually be an adult.
Yeah.
Or a individual.
But even when we get to that state of adulthood, some parents are still like, you are still the thing I want you to be. At least for Indian people, it's very this is who you should marry. This is your career you should have. So depending on the culture, it's it never ends until they're dead. It's because you could be like, I'm 54.
Sure. And then you're in their head, they're like, she's a dumb 18-year-old who continues to ding up the car.
You're like, I just started menopause.
Yeah.
Biology, science says I'm grown up. Can you be on my side?
Yeah.
So I guess I wonder then, since you get to see these kids' art and you get to know them and their relationship with their family, do you feel like when you see their art, do you feel like you could ever detect through their art anything? And I want to leave this open to something positive. I don't want to just be like, can you see who the psychopaths are?
No, I think
psychopath.
it's I do learn from every once in a while. I'd say 10% of the time I get shocked by what they do with the simple exercises because sometimes there's an innovation.
Yeah.
But I can't. I don't get any emotional depth from what they're doing.
I had a good experience. This kid that I babysit, he's 14 now, but I've been babysitting him since he was born. Yeah. And when he was 4, we were just painting, and he just threw a bunch of colors on. And I was like, what the hell is, this is just, this is going to turn into a mess, Yeah. But, and I said, oh, what are you making? And he said, I'll know when I finish. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That is some prolific stuff right there. He's like, I'll know when I'm done. I was like, shit, Leo, you're blowing my mind. You know what it was when he was done?
What was it?
Brown.
Yeah.
Just brown. That's what it was.
He's like, that's where we start in the earth,
Yeah.
and that's where we come back to. Yesterday I was watching this documentary on Keith Haring, and one thing I really like about his work is he does these it's graffiti. He started as a graffiti artist, but not like cool taggers, not like Wild Style, but he just drew cartoons. And what I saw in this documentary was that he'd hop on the subway, and every open advertising block he would just draw a cartoon, and then he might add some words to it. But what was cool about his style is that he didn't have a preconceived notion as to what it would be before he started. So it was improv plus a limited visual vocabulary. So he had like iconic, you can tell right away when you see one of his drawings.
Yeah.
Because of the thickness of the lines and like the curves. Yeah. But he didn't have like a sketchbook where he was like, oh, I have to replicate this over and over and over again. So kind of like with your child that you were babysitting, how they're like, I'll know what it is when it's done. That sort of, I don't know, man. We're just taking the first step. And I think of art and creativity a little bit like a math problem, where you just have to take a step. And then the end of that step leads to a finite number of other choices you can make. And then from there, you make another choice. And you just keep making choices.
Yeah, so maybe not all the colors at once. Because
Right.
those are too many finite choices at once. We know it's going to be shit brown.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just do the yellow and blue and then figure it out from there.
Happiness comes from limitations.
True, very true. So as an educator, what are some of the inequities you've noticed in the spaces you work in?
No, it's brutal. So many inequities. I mean, I don't even know where to start. There are legion. I think, let's take a school with no funding, and the first thing you have to deal with is people's mental and physical well-being and health. So you show up in a school, and immediately a security guard is surly, and you are late, and you're late because your parents had to drop off other people. So you're already getting castigated the minute that you show up by the administration for being there late. Then you're in the hallway, you see a fight in the hallway, you go into a classroom that's either too hot or too cold, and you've got a teacher that started that year, so they have no experience. So right off the bat, you're already set up by the conditions to not have a good educational experience. And then you go to another place where there's a friendly person that opens the door to a carpeted atrium or whatever lobby, and then there's organic snacks that have been made.
A petting zoo.
Yeah. So, and then there's an expectation that everyone is treated like a prince or a princess or a snowflake, and that just being treated, and I'm not even saying that in a negative way. It'd be great if we could all be treated like and see and have our individuality recognized. But if you're taken care of from the start, you're going to have a better experience. You're gonna or not only better experience, but you're gonna learn how to play. And I think play and learning are intertwined.
And I think also that you mentioned expectations with expecting them to be treated like decent human beings. And I think on the reverse, there's expectations in these maybe impoverished communities that are facing these types of things like AC being not working or being too hot or being too cold or like those situations. I think they expect those kids to be misbehaved, to be criminal, to be, and that's why they're maybe more disciplinary towards these little kids who.
Yeah, we use fake terms, or we weaponize terms like grit or resilience. And these things are corporate terms that are meant to make you not form a union when you're a worker. Mindfulness is another one of these terms. All of these HR, human resource terms that have nothing to do with material analysis and with making your life as a worker better. These terms are all like to internalize responsibility and guilt and have you police yourself. So be mindful. Don't express your emotions when you are in an unjust situation. Learn to count to 10 and turn all of those negative feelings inward is what mindfulness really is. Resilience. Oh, well, we're not going to give you water, so or a bottle for water. So find a way to keep that Dixie cup all day long and fill up your tiny little Dixie cup the one time we let you go to the water fountain. Resilience is sort of another term, or grit. Like why should a child have grit?
It's a way to kind of excuse the injustice that's happening. It's like, hey, well, if we label it like this, then you can perceive it in a different way.
Yes. Yeah. So we ask people to do more with less in impoverished communities.
Yeah.
And so I saw this everywhere. Like I worked middle schools when I first started teaching. I worked middle schools in the Bronx. I taught science, middle school science, 6th, 7th, 8th grade for 2 years. And then I went and I was in the Upper East Side. I taught at another school, and there I had 5 classes. I always had 5 classes of kids. But at that school, what I noticed was that one of those classes was the free lunch class. And it was also tracked on 100% tracked, where it was all the black and brown kids, and all the IEPs were in one room. And then there were like 3 sort of middling classes that were kind of just average kids, and then there was the class where one kid was a professional tennis player, and another one was a professional ballerina, and another one's dad owned a fleet of livery cars. So never did those kids of the elite in New York, even though they went to a public school, rub shoulders with the other 7th graders who were in the IEP black and brown public housing class.
Yeah. Money plays a role even in all these different spaces with how they're experiencing education.
Yeah, and I could see, and so that is where I saw the first like radical inequity, because my first 2 years, every class was just not funded well.
I mean, I think that's what it is just in education all in all. Nothing is ever funded well.
And then I went to Chinatown and I taught in another school that was dual language, Mandarin and English. And Rupert Murdoch's wife at the time was Chinese. And so she had poured a lot of money and gotten a lot of big name clout people to put money into this little charter school in Chinatown. So going to these 3 different schools gave me this like bird's eye view of inequality in New York City, because most teachers, they go to one school and they're there forever.
Did that charter school pay you more?
No.
That's what I would think, because you hear so many teachers are getting taken out of the state schooling system and taken into charter schools because it pays more.
Yeah. No, yeah. Well, and charters are all bad. They're terrible places. They remind me of the what was it? The Native Americans would be taken out of their reservations, or the schools with their own communities, and Carlisle.
Pushing forward your own agenda,
Yeah.
because that's where they bring in religion and everything. Betsy DeVos, I think, was someone that was like, yeah, let's bring in religion through charter schools. And so that's why I'm like, education and religion.
Yeah, totally unethical. Well, yeah, so charter schools are bad, and then a lot of them I think perpetuate terrible things within their communities, because you'll focus on a child at the school who gets in, and you say, you're the best of your community. You're the talented 10th of your community. You're the entrepreneur. You're the winner. You're the go-getter. You're the one with grit and resilience. So now you create elitism within a community, and while also detaching those kids from their community. So you're creating like literally overseers. You're creating the entrepreneurs that are then going to not look at the people from where they came from as equal.
Yeah, it's causing a rift within the marginalized community they came out from.
Yeah. It's like the little girl earlier that's like, whose art is the best? Because she'd been raised and poisoned by her mom to think about, and her dad
hierarchy.
Too. Yeah. But I only met her mom, so that's why I say that. So you're creating this sense of hierarchy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it is weaponizing education, too, to create division rather than a sense of community.
Yeah. And I think that's a key, effect of capitalism. All of these constructs that we have that are socially created, like race and gender and money, all to further hierarchies.
Yeah.
And so we talk about money. I guess I would like to have your idea because I know you've talked about communism in the past.
Oh,
And so
well, this comes right to this ties into school a little bit. You know,
Totally.
my kids, I teach a civics class as well, and one of the big components of it is activism, and then we look through different movements. We specifically the civil rights movement and the LGBTQ plus liberation movements, and they're like, oh yeah, hate is bad. Like they've learned all the buzzwords. They're like, racism's bad, you know, hate is bad. Oh my gosh, it's terrible that Martin Luther King was assassinated. Oh, we're so much better than that now, right, Gabe? That's how they feel. Like they feel morally superior to the past because they think that we've overcome all these things. And then I say, well, yeah, I guess legally segregation has ended, but okay, I'd like you to know as public school students in New York City, this is the most segregated school system in the country. Yeah. And they're all like, what? Shocked. And I go, well, look around. Like, you know, in most of the rooms, it's like 80% white kids and then like 3 Asian kids and maybe 1 black kid, right? And I go, so if we're fully integrated, like, why is this classroom looking like this? And then I bring up high schools and, well, should all high schools be open in New York to everybody? And then a lot of the white kids will regurgitate things their parents told them about, well, no, testing's important because testing is what dictates whether or not you get into one of the good schools or not.
It's like, but have you even really thought about if testing is even good, if that even really does anything?
You know, like, why is it that the 3 best magnet schools in New York City are entirely white and Asian?
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's really great that you're having them critically think about these things on a small scale, something micro, like just look around you. So then once they can start understanding that, they can start understanding the bigger picture of actually what you think is history that we've overcome is actually still happening today, just loopholes around the legalities.
Yeah, and a lot, and nobody ever thinks they're the villain, right? They look in the past and they go, oh, these like white people were all Klansmen. And it's like some of them maybe were, but some of them believed like neoliberal nonsense like we believe today. Like, well, it's all about merit. Or like, well, who got the best grades? Well, who studied the hardest? Well, who had the most grit? Well, who had the most resilience? Well, who was the most mindful? Like,
Yeah.
we're now just using different words to
Fulfill the same thing.
yes.
Yeah. So I guess what are your thoughts on how money infiltrates not just education, then how we operate, how we navigate as a society here in this Western world?
I think as you know, I think we're creative people, and as creative people, and in relationships as well, I always try to extricate myself from a financial relationship with what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. So I've always had a job. And that way I can do stand-up without being beholden to a club or a booker or the gig. I never have to take the gig.
Independent.
Yeah. I never have to take the gig because I have another job. Mm-hmm. And with relationships, in the past, something I found that really killed the passion was cohabitating and commingling funds, talking about rent with a lover, talking about paying bills with a lover, talking about splitting bills, anything, or labor in the apartment, you know. And so
clean this, you clean that.
Yeah, anytime we make it a corporation, the only reason that people should hook up like that is to socially reproduce, which means have children. Like when you have kids, maybe, you become a corporation.
But you don't want to have kids.
Yeah, but if I don't want to have kids, then there's no reason for me to play house with someone in a capitalist way.
Yeah, only because things are so expensive. So because of the capitalist world we live in, you have to play house with someone just so we can afford to live.
Yeah, and that is a compromise that leads to
breaking up.
Yes, and so many people in New York make that like hop into a live with your partner relationship early on
because of money.
You end up getting maladaptive, deformed relationships. Mm-hmm. These weird,
you're adjusting. You're making adjustments.
You're making adjustments.
It's like when you have a back problem that you never get adjusted, and then over time you're just like a crooked ass fucking person.
I was a two hunchbacked beast. is what happens.
Yeah.
Or if you watch John Carpenter's The Thing, when the monster has like half human parts and half dog parts, and it's just
Or zombies from Walking Dead. You just see a
Yeah.
couple of zombies like, oh, they look like they've been living together for 2
yeah,
years.
the Walking Dead corpses on autopilot.
Yeah.
Just so we can never, capitalism is not going away,
Yeah.
but every day you can take a little stand against it.
So with taking stands against it, then I think about capitalism and how it informs so many holidays that we have. Christmas. Reason why I hate some holidays is because of the capitalist nature.
Sure.
And so we have Valentine's Day. How do you feel like you resist these capitalist ideologies when holidays like Valentine's approaches?
Well, with anyone who I'm in a amorous relationship with, I try to show up to every date as though it's like the first date. So I always try to have like new first date energy, and it's like just being your best.
That's awesome. Okay, Gabe, bringing it. All right.
So if you're being your best, then there's no reason to have a day like Valentine's Day.
I agree. Like Mother's Day, I feel the same. I want to make my mom feel loved and appreciated for the life she gave me every day.
Yeah.
And on Mother's Day, I'm like, you know what, Mom, I'm actually busy today, but I love you because I show you all the other days.
Every day. I call you every day.
Yeah.
Or when we do hang out, it's a high quality hangout. So really for me, and this is a love language thing that people has been brought up before. I don't know if it's a valid theory on the world, but the love language of like quality time, for me, quality is more important than quantity.
Yeah.
So if I show up and I'm here, we hang out for 24 hours straight, but I'm cranky and sick the whole time or tired the whole time and complaining, well, that's not fun. So wouldn't it be better if I hang out with you for 2 hours and we do something that really excites you?
Yeah. And that's what I think about Valentine's when we go out. Quality over quantity. Everyone wants to go to a nice restaurant. And I've served tables for so long. Restaurants and shit on Valentine's, fuck that. Why is this special? As a server, I don't give a fuck about you on Valentine's.
Yeah.
Give me my money, get out, let me turn this table.
That's right.
So why do you want to waste your Valentine's with me,
And it's performative. It feels like you're going through motions. It is a Walking Dead holiday. It's like, oh, flowers? Okay, great. Chocolates? Okay, great. I mean, all of these are just like little, basic Ugg boots accoutrement.
Exactly.
You don't really need.
Yeah, we don't need that. So I think any day we should be showing up, as you say.
Yeah. Just show up and be a good human to the person that you, and by be a good human, it's like, ask them what they want, ask them what they need. If somebody wants to go out on Valentine's Day and like they tell me exactly what they want, then as a gift, I can do that for them. I can be there for them. But I am not going out of my way to voluntarily say, this is important. We're going to make this important.
I would do that, but maybe over time I'd even be like, hey, I did it, but maybe we could talk about what it really means to us.
Yeah.
And so maybe next year I don't have to perform in this way.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
That shows me something about you, which I think you've shared with me. You mentioned now, kind of listening to what they want, which shows me like you care about being heard.
Yeah.
And you care about making sure your person is feeling heard. So what we like to end with here is just asking our guest, how can someone, anyone, all of us love you better?
Oh, I put myself out there in public, and when I hear feedback from other people that they listen to something, that they like something I said, that they share it, that to me is how people can show me that they love me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, then, on that note, people can show you they love you by listening in and tuning into your podcast, Halal Cartels.
Boom, right there, baby. Halal Cartels. Check it out. We put out episodes once a week, and it's me, the Cartels part, and my co-hosts. Sorry, Samir. It's so late.
I'm like, are you
Samir
waiting for the
Nassim.
South Asian to name him? What the hell, you racist fuck? Samir.
Yeah. So my co-host Samir Nassim and we put out episodes every week.
Nice. And shoot out your Instagram real quick, too.
Oh, yeah. It's Gabe Pac1, GABEPAC, the number 1.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. Thank you for coming out and doing that.
Shanti, this was great. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you, man.